Walshe has admitted to getting rid of his wife Anna's remains, but maintains that he did not cause her death. Prosecutors painting a disturbing picture of Walshe's actions in the immediate aftermath of Anna's death. The defense offering an explanation, telling jurors Walshe found his wife dead, panicked, fearing no one would believe that she suddenly died. With us now, NewsNation legal contributor and anchor for the Law and Crime Network, Jesse Weber. Hi, Jesse. Thanks for being with us this morning. How damning are those internet searches?
It's awful. Look, let's be very clear. This is a very difficult job for a defense attorney. Now, they are doing basically what they have to do and what they only can do. You can't escape those messages. You can't escape those searches. I mean, Brian Walshe told investigators he couldn't really explain those searches. So what do? He pleads guilty to disposing of the body, and he pleads guilty to misleading investigators. Now, here's the thing, Marni. What is the evidence that he killed her? Well, let's talk about it. So there's clear evidence that he disposed of the body. Now, we don't have her body, so we don't know exactly what happened to her, which is why prosecutors are focusing so much here on the motive, right? The plan. They've been focusing their attention on this idea that she was having an alleged affair. So if he is looking up a pornographic video about cheating wives in the days before she disappears, that looks suspicious. If he's allegedly Googling the name of the man that she's allegedly having an affair with, that looks suspicious. If you talk about an almost $3 million life insurance policy that he would gain from, that looks suspicious. Also focusing on the idea that we know he was facing federal charges, right? Federal fraud charges. Maybe if he was the sole parent, he would get some sort of leniency there. These are all the theories the prosecution is going with. But I will tell you, at the end of the day, the jury has to believe that Anna Walshe just suddenly died in the midst of all of this going on, and he thought it was a better idea to dispose of her body than calling emergency responders for the woman that he claims he loves. It's a difficult case, and these messages certainly don't help.
Yeah, suspicious, yes. Circumstantial, all the things you brought up, yes. But does it plant reasonable doubt in the jury? The other thing is the allegation of dismembering the body. How do you expect the prosecution and defense to argue their case around that element?
Right. So the defense will say, yeah, he did this. He panicked. He wasn't thinking straight. I will tell you what the prosecution is probably really going to hammer in on. If this is somebody that he really loved, how could he do this? Does it make sense that she suddenly died, the woman of his dreams, the woman he loved, that he would never harm her, and is able to physically do this? A hatchet, right? We're talking about a hacksaw, a knife, blood, these searches. The jury is going to have to accept that. Now, look, Marni, I'll tell you, I've seen cases before where somebody is charged with murder and disposal of a body, and they might not find the body, or the body's difficult to determine what happened, and they might find that person not guilty of murder and guilty of disposing of the body. I can't tell you that's going to happen here, because there is a lot of strange aspects to this case, and at first glance, this is asking the jury to believe a lot, to believe that he just suddenly found her and then was able to dispose of her body in such a horrific manner and it never be found again.
Will the jury ask the judge, and I mean, how is this handled in a case like this? If they find him guilty of dismembering the body after the fact, disposing of it, but not of the murder, does that change the charge? Does it change the sentencing? How will that factor in?
Look, he already pled guilty. He pled guilty to disposing of the body. He pled guilty to misleading police. The jury just has to decide whether or not he's guilty of murder. They have to determine whether or not he did this. And they may be deadlocked. They may say, we're not entirely sure. Again, no body cases are notoriously more difficult for prosecutors to prove. You're not going to have the medical examiner come in. But you do wonder whether or not they're going to be experts called by the defense to talk about sudden, unexpected death. How often does that happen? I just will tell you, circumstantial. It is strange that of all times for Anna Walshe to suddenly die, as there seems to be problems in their marriage, and he's going through those federal charges, for this to happen. And there is this effort through the Google searches and the buying of the supplies and the disposal, how quickly he was able to do this, and allegedly also looking up the trash bag killer. You mentioned at the top of the segment. going on this website, murder, murder, murder. It all looks really bad, which does make me wonder whether or not this will come down to Brian Walshe taking the stand and explaining what happened. Not saying he should, not saying he will, but sometimes in these cases, the jury needs to hear from the defendant to understand what was his mindset going into this.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.